Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're going deep on something I think a lot of you are going to be interested in. Basically, there's this class action lawsuit against Sony, and it's all about their PlayStation Store prices.
Yeah, you know those times when you notice that, like, downloading a game can actually cost you more than just buying the disc at a store?
Exactly. Like, is that even legal? So this lawsuit is trying to figure that out, and honestly, I think it could change the whole landscape of digital marketplaces, not just for games.
And the thing is, this isn't, like, just some small complaint. Sony is actually facing similar lawsuits
Yeah.
in the US and the UK too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is the third one. So clearly something's up, right? Like, people around the world are starting to question how Sony runs its digital store.
That's wild. So to give everyone a sense of how big this is, the group behind this lawsuit, they're called Massaschade Consument. I hope I said that right.
Yeah, they're a Dutch consumer rights group.
Right. And they're representing, get this, over 3 million PlayStation gamers in the Netherlands.
Yeah, 3 million. That's huge. That's not just a couple of people complaining.
Not at all. So what exactly are they saying Sony's doing wrong?
So their main argument is that Sony's abusing its control over the PlayStation Store, right? Like, remember back in 2019 when Sony stopped selling those digital download codes through other retailers?
Uh-huh.
Well, now, because of that, the PlayStation Store is basically the only place you can buy digital PlayStation games.
Mm.
So the lawsuit is calling this a Sony tax, basically saying Sony is just, like, jacking up prices because they know they can.
A Sony tax, huh? Not a good look. And the suit actually claims that in the Netherlands, digital games can sometimes cost up to, wait for it, 47% more than physical copies.
Oh, wow, 47%.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, let's say you spend like, I don't know, $200 a year on games. That extra cost could be another $100 just because you prefer digital.
Oh, actually.
Yeah. And the lawsuit points out that this is especially unfair in a place like the Netherlands, where distributing physical games is actually pretty cheap.
Yeah, that point about distribution costs is actually really important. This could, like, set a legal precedent. You know, if this lawsuit wins, courts might start looking at pricing differences between physical and digital stuff differently. Not just games, but, like, everything.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you think, should digital things always be cheaper? Since, you don't have to manufacture or ship them.
It's a good question. And going back to what we were saying about Sony cutting out those third-party retailers, I mean, I get why they wanted control over their own platform,
Sure.
but it feels like by making the PlayStation Store your only option, they're kind of free to just set whatever prices they want.
Right, exactly. There's no competition.
And that's exactly what the lawsuit is saying. They're saying that by getting rid of competition and limiting choices for consumers, Sony's basically acting like a monopoly. Of course, defining a monopoly legally is super complicated, but basically it means having so much power that you can just set prices without worrying about, like, consequences.
And the lawsuit's trying to prove that what Sony's doing is unfair to gamers. So what are they hoping to achieve? Like, if they win, what does that actually mean for gamers?
Well, first of all, they want Sony to change how they set prices. No more Sony tax, right?
Makes sense.
They also want Sony to pay back all those gamers for the extra money they've had to pay all this time,
Oh, wow, like a refund.
basically. But I think even bigger than that, they want to set a precedent, like a legal example, to make Sony and maybe even other companies with digital marketplaces start operating more fairly.
That's a big goal. I was reading a quote from Lucia Melchertz. She's the president of Massaschade Consument, and she was saying that she thinks both the game developers and the players are getting a bad deal right now.
Oh, for sure.
Like she said, Sony is like squeezing profits from both sides. The developers might feel like they have to accept whatever deal Sony offers just to get their games on the store.
Right, because they want people to be able to play their games.
Exactly. And then on the other side, the players, well, they're the ones stuck paying more.
Makes sense.
It was interesting how she put it. She's not saying Sony shouldn't be able to make money, but that they need to find a balance. She actually said, and I'm quoting here, Sony can earn money, but at the same time, consumers have the right to fair prices.
Yeah, it's a tough one, right? Like, as our lives become more and more digital, how do we make sure everyone's being treated fairly? How do we protect those consumer rights? It's a question we all have to think about, and it's only going to get more important.
Absolutely. But before we get into all the potential outcomes of this lawsuit and what it could mean for the future of gaming, I think it's worth taking a step back. Like, how did we even get here? Why has digital distribution become so dominant, and how does it actually affect gamers?
Yeah, good point. To really understand what's at stake here, we need to look at the bigger picture of digital distribution, how it works, and why it's become so popular.
Let's break it down.
Okay, so remember, like, way back when, you'd have to go to the store to buy a new game.
Oh,
You'd
yeah.
get the physical disc, the case, sometimes even a manual.
Yeah, good times.
That was physical distribution. But now, it's all about digital distribution.
Yeah.
Just downloading the game right to your console, no physical copy needed. It's super convenient.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You can, like, buy and play games instantly, preload the big ones before they even come out, and you never have to worry about, like, losing a disc or scratching it.
Exactly. But there's kind of a trade-off. With digital, you don't actually own a physical copy of the game, right?
Right.
It's more like you're paying for a license to play it on your console.
That's true. I guess I never really thought about it like that.
Yeah, and that's where things get a little, well, complicated.
Yeah.
Like, with a physical game, you could lend it to a friend or trade it in, even sell it when you're done with it. But with digital, your rights are basically tied to that specific platform and whatever rules they have. What happens if, down the line, Sony decides to just shut down the PlayStation Store or, like, change their policies?
I see what you mean.
Could you lose access to all those games you paid for?
That is kind of unsettling. Makes you wonder if, like, the convenience of digital comes with a risk. Maybe that's part of why this lawsuit is getting so much attention. It's not just about paying a few extra bucks for a game. It's about who actually controls the games we buy.
It's about choice.
Yeah.
And control. And that's what the courts are going to have to figure out. Is Sony just providing a service and setting prices how they see fit? Or are they, like, taking advantage of their position to basically make extra money off of gamers who, let's be honest, don't have any other option if they want to buy digital PlayStation games?
It's a tough call. I mean, on one hand, you have to admit Sony does invest a lot. They develop and maintain the PlayStation Network, offer online play, all these extra features. They deserve to profit from that, right?
Right. But the question is, where does profit become, like, price gouging? And that's where it gets tricky. How do you measure the value of digital services? And how do you decide what's a fair price when there's no physical thing to compare it to?
Yeah, good point. It's not like you can walk into a store and compare the price of a digital download with, like, the physical disc anymore. That option's gone.
Exactly. And that's a big part of what the lawsuit is arguing. They're saying that by taking away that point of comparison, Sony's making it harder for gamers to know if they're getting a good deal or not.
So let's say, hypothetically, the Dutch court sides with the gamers. What could happen? I mean, could this trigger similar lawsuits in other countries? Or even affect other digital marketplaces, like beyond gaming?
It's totally possible. If they win in the Netherlands, it could encourage, like, consumer groups in other countries to file similar lawsuits. It could also make digital marketplaces rethink their pricing, especially if they're, in a really dominant position.
Yeah.
Like, think about app stores, streaming services, places you buy ebooks. They could all be impacted by this.
Wow, so this could actually change how the whole digital world works.
It could be a major turning point.
Yeah.
But even if, like, the legal stuff doesn't change overnight, it's already started a conversation about consumer rights in this digital age, and that's important.
It definitely shows that we, the consumers, we do have some power. We can fight back against stuff that just feels wrong.
Yeah. We got to be active in this digital world, not just passive,
Absolutely. Okay, but let's not forget about the game developers. They're kind of caught in the middle, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, they want their games to be played by as many people as possible, but they also want to be treated fairly by, platforms like Sony. What do you think developers are thinking about all this?
Well, from what Massaschade Consument is saying, it seems like some developers feel stuck. Like they need to be on the PlayStation Store to reach a big audience, but they don't really have much power to, like, negotiate better deals with Sony.
So they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Basically, yeah. And that's why this lawsuit could be a big deal for them, too. If things become more transparent and fair, it could benefit developers as much as gamers.
I see. So it sounds like this case has the potential to shake up the entire gaming world. Like, it could affect how games are priced, how they're sold, even how they're made.
It really shows how interconnected everything is in this digital world. Change one thing and who knows, it could have a ripple effect everywhere.
And it shows why it's so important to pay attention to these kinds of legal battles that could seriously impact our digital lives.
Right. Because in the end, we want everyone to benefit from this digital world, not just the big corporations, right?
Couldn't have said it better myself. But let's bring it back to our listeners for a second. For those who, love gaming, what does all this actually mean for them?
Yeah, I mean, for anyone out there who plays PlayStation, this lawsuit could actually, like, decide how much you're paying for games. It's
Yeah.
about whether you really have a choice when it comes to buying digital, or if Sony can just charge whatever they want because they control the PlayStation Store. And even if you don't play on PlayStation, this whole thing raises some really big questions about, like, how much power these digital marketplaces have.
Hmm.
Think about it. The apps you download, movies you stream, books you buy online. Are you really getting a fair price? Or are these companies just taking advantage of their position to, overcharge everyone?
So this isn't just about video games. It's about how we pay for all kinds of digital stuff.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to understand, like, what the legal arguments are here. Remember we were talking about monopolies before?
Yeah.
Well, this whole lawsuit comes down to whether Sony controlling the PlayStation Store counts as a monopoly.
Hmm.
And if it does, are they using that power to rip off gamers?
Okay, so let's say, just for argument's sake, the court decides that, yes, Sony is doing something wrong. What happens then?
Well, they could force Sony to change how they price their games.
Hmm.
Maybe even like set a limit on how much more they can charge for a digital game compared to a physical copy.
Hmm.
And they could also make Sony pay back all the gamers who've been, overcharged.
Oh, wow. So people could actually get some money back.
Maybe, yeah. But I think the bigger impact is that this could set a precedent, like a legal example, that gives people more power to challenge unfair prices in other digital marketplaces.
I see.
Imagine a world where app stores, streaming services, all those places, they actually have to be fair with their prices.
That would be huge. People would finally have some leverage.
Right. It could force all these companies to start offering better deals and like actually compete for customers.
So what can our listeners do? Like, how can they stay up to date on all this and maybe even, make a difference?
Well, first of all, just stay informed. Keep up with the news about this case and any others like it. There are lots of great resources online, like from consumer groups and legal experts.
Right.
And don't be afraid to speak up. Share articles. Talk about it with your friends. You could even contact, like, your representatives and tell them you care about digital rights and protecting consumers.
It's true. Your voice does matter, even when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And this is going to take a while. These cases can go on for years. So just, stay involved and keep the pressure on to make the digital world more fair and transparent.
So we started by talking about one specific lawsuit about PlayStation prices. But we've ended up talking about something so much bigger, like the whole relationship between consumers and companies in this digital age.
It's a new world, and we're all figuring it out as we go. But by understanding the issues, asking the right questions, and speaking up, we can actually have a say in how this digital future unfolds.
Well said. And we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on all of this? Have you ever felt like a company was overcharging you for something digital? Let us know in the comments.
Keep those brains working, everybody. There's a lot more to explore as we go deeper into this digital world. See you next time.